Hello and welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers, and you are in Season 6 of Wrestling at Random, where the theme is more wrestling than ever, somehow more wrestling than the more wrestling than ever that represented Season 5. Upwards of, 60,000 hours of professional wrestling have been dumped into the randomizer. It randomly selects something, as the name implies, selects a show for us to watch. There's weekly TV, there's pay-per-views, there's specials, there's a million different things in there. It selects something for us to watch. That is what we do. And this week, the randomizer selected an episode of television, August 20th, 1988, of CWA Memphis. You could call it Continental Wrestling Association. You could call it Championship Wrestling Association. You just call it Memphis. Either way, this is a different time period than the Memphis we've watched before here on the bonus feed, or here on the free feed and on the bonus feed. So looking forward to talking about what Memphis had in store for us this week.
Yeah, you mentioned 1988. A lot of the Memphis that we've talked about, that we know and love and we visited here on this podcast, is earlier than 1988. We are towards the end of the territories here as we hit the late 80s.
As happens quite a bit on this podcast for whatever reason.
Randomizer always does this.
Likes to pick late stage shows of territories that are on their way out the door.
So here in August 20th, 1988, we go to Memphis. The Memphis territory of the NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance, was run by Nick Goulas in the 70s until him and Jerry Jarrett had a falling out. And Jarrett started his own promotion to compete against Goulas. The NWA actually supported Jarrett a lot, and so they didn't help Goulas run opposition to him like they usually do against outlaw territories. Jerry Jarrett brought Jerry the King Lawler with him. He hired Lance Russell. They got the time slot on Saturday morning with the NBC affiliate, and they hired the popular weatherman Dave Brown to round out the announce desk. And, of course, the rest is history with that television program. From 1977 until the mid-'80s, it was a glory period for Jarrett Promotions. The money was made based on how they drew in Memphis mainly, and to a lesser extent Louisville, Nashville, Evansville, and other small markets. But the television ratings are the story. The television ratings for Memphis were enormous. It was so popular that at one time during the peak, a World Series baseball game that was scheduled to air on NBC during the wrestling time slot, they did not air it because they aired wrestling instead.
Wow. I love me some baseball. I was actually just at a baseball game earlier today as we're recording this, but I respect the hell out of a television station that says, no, can't show the World Series. We've got wrestling to show. I love it.
In 1988, the year of the show we're about to review, plans were set in motion to merge the AWA and the CWA into one federation in an attempt to counter the WWF and their national expansion.
The idea of merging CWA and World Class in 1988.
Oh, no, we're not to World Class yet. Just the AWA.
Okay, yes. So even that's even yes. AWA and CWA merging in 1988. That's like if TNA and I guess, and you throw again, we're going to throw World Class in there. It would be like if TNA, MLW, and Billy Corgan's NWA decided to merge and say, we are now going to challenge WWE.
That's a very good comp because, here at this period, the Federation was renamed to Championship Wrestling Association, and in late 1987, Lawler began co-promoting with Jerry Jarrett. On May 9th, 1988 in Memphis, Lawler took on the reigning AWA champion Curt Hennig and won the title. As the year went on, the AWA-CWA alliance was expanded, like you mentioned, to include World Class out of Texas. And they had a title unification match set for the AWA's first and only pay-per-view, the AWA Super Clash 3, where Lawler retained the AWA Championship and won the World Class Heavyweight Championship in controversial fashion. The match ended due to excessive blood loss from Kerry von Erich, and Jerry Lawler was declared the unified world champion.
The excessive blood loss was Kerry von Erich had the claw on Jerry Lawler, had him beat, but the blood was pumping too strong from him having the claw on, and he was bleeding too much, and so the ref stopped it basically while Kerry von Erich had Jerry Lawler defeated.
If you want to hear our review of the AWA Super Clash 3, including that match, it's over in our bonus content. If you go to patreon.com/wrestlingatrandom, over there we have upwards of 200 episodes you haven't heard here in the free feed, including episode number 110 when we reviewed AWA Super Clash 3. $5 unlocks the entire back catalog of all 200 episodes over there.
Yeah, at the time of this recording, there are 216 episodes in the bonus feed that if you have never subscribed, you have never heard. That is more episodes than we have in the 6 seasons so far on the free feed sitting there waiting for you.
The CWA and World Class broke off their relationship with the AWA, and Lawler was stripped of the AWA World title. In retaliation, Lawler kept the physical AWA World Heavyweight Championship belt for not getting his payoff from Super Clash 3. After the cooperative attempt with the AWA failed, Jerry Jarrett bought World Class from the Von Erichs and unified the two promotion as the United States Wrestling Association, the USWA, in 1989, thus ending the era of Continental Wrestling Association.
You mentioned the AWA World Title belt that Jerry Lawler kept physical possession of. That belt still exists and is still defended as just the World Heavyweight Championship in 01 of all places in Japan in the year 2025, and also has been defended on Pro Wrestling Noah shows in recent years. So yeah, who would have thought that belt would have the longevity? Maybe not the I don't know. It's not a priority, really. It's not a belt that really has a lot of prestige, but it still exists. It is still defended.
We get our opening video montage, lots of Jerry the King Lawler, as you'd expect, and the song is the 2001 Space Odyssey theme, which is Ric Flair's theme song, but it's got a hip dance beat to it.
Yeah, it's got some ooncing going on. It's like if Jerry or if Ric Flair debuted at a rave, this is what it would sound like. We have Lance Russell, Dave Brown at the desk running down the show, and we've talked about it before. While there may be better individual announcers or announcers that have had better runs of a couple of years, I always go back to late 80s, early 90s, Jim Ross. I don't think there's any argument the best long-term pairing of announcers as a broadcast team that made you feel at home, even if this wasn't your territory, just when you see it, is Lance Russell and Dave Brown.
No, Lance Russell is like warm and welcoming and just like what a great wrestling announcer. And then he gets angry and frustrated in the right ways with the heels, and like it's tremendous
in the most realistic ways, like the most exactly.
So good. They run down the card, and then we get some highlights from the Mid-South Coliseum, where we get clips of Jeff Jarrett teaming with the superstar Bill Dundee to take on the team of Ron Fuller and Jimmy Golden.
Fuller. This is the future. This is the future
Fuller.
Colonel Robert Parker.
I got my Fullers mixed up in my mind. Sorry.
And the future Bunkhouse Buck, Jimmy Golden. So it's tag team partners we'd see, or guys that we'd see part of the Stud Stable in WCW in the mid 90s. They are the Stud Stable here in CWA Memphis in 1988. We love some Robert Fuller here on this podcast.
We do. A guy I had no time for in his WCW run, but as I've explored the earlier appearances in different territories of Robert Fuller, What a guy! Like he's one of my favorites now, and yeah, it's like on your shirt where we have the Mount Rushmore of guys we didn't know we liked until we started doing this podcast. He's not quite on the Mount Rushmore, but he's definitely honorable mention.
If you were adding to Mount Rushmore, if you're adding a fifth face throughout Mount Rushmore, I feel like for this podcast it would be Robert Fuller at this point.
If you're wondering, hey, I'm listening to the audio podcast, I can't see Adam's shirt. That's because you're not watching on the YouTube channel. That's where we have the video version of this podcast. Go to youtube.com and search for Wrestling at Random Podcast. There you have the video version of this podcast. Even if you don't consume your podcast through the video medium, throwing us a like and subscribe over there helps us work the algorithm so other wrestling fans can find the show. So definitely, if you want to show your support, give us a subscribe over on the YouTube channel. You can continue to get the audio version from all the other platforms. The video version's also on Spotify as well. So if you're listening on Spotify,
cool. Like in the player, if you're listening to this podcast, but you think it's just the audio of this podcast on Spotify, open up your phone right now and you will see the video of us doing this podcast. It is space age stuff. I don't know how Jeremy does it.
Back to the Mid-South Coliseum here, the Stud Stable taking on Jeff Jarrett and Bill Dundee. Dundee has Fuller rolled up for the visual pin, and then Dundee gets hit with a kendo stick. Fuller covers him, gets the win. The Stud Stable, via cheating, win the match.
Yes, the man who hit him with the kendo stick, Downtown Bruno, the future Harvey Whippleman. And man, we'll do a fashion corner when we see him in studio. Downtown Bruno, this is him like you have never seen him before. I've got a big brawl after the match. Bill Dundee has the figure 4 on Robert Fuller, as Jeff Jarrett keeps Jimmy Golden and Downtown Bruno at bay with the same kendo stick they brought in. We've got Dundee using the ropes for leverage. Jerry Jarrett is in the ring to keep the ref from pulling him off until finally other stud stable members, Brickhouse Brown and Gary Young, make the save.
Yeah, he was in this figure 4 forever. Yes. Fuller was in this for a long time, and we will see the effects right in the next segment as we go back to the studio. And the Tennessee stud Robert Fuller comes out in a wheelchair. He can no longer walk because of his injuries sustained by this figure 4. He calls them lowlifes for attacking him after the match. After the match was over, and they've put him in this wheelchair. Jimmy Golden, we're told, will have a new partner to get revenge on Jarrett and Dundee. We'll find out who this partner is before the show is over.
You're leaving out the best part. Robert Fuller has his Tennessee ugly stick, and he wants to hit Bill Dundee with it. He also has a great line. Yes. He says, before this program ends, I will bring them some bad news to go along with my bad news. Basically, they did something to me. I'm going to do something to you. Camera pulls back as we go to break, and there's a full-size red pickup truck in this tiny little television studio for reasons unknown.
We go to the ring in this tiny studio for our first match. Billy Travis taking on a guy named Assassin. Not the Assassin, Jody Hamilton. This is
100% not the Assassin, Jody Hamilton. This is like many of the non-Don Jardine spoilers that we've seen, and then we do actually see the real spoiler from time to time. I was thrown here because I remember just a few years later, Billy Joe Travis in USWA, watching USWA on ESPN. Here, he's just sort of your generic fiery young babyface.
Yeah, Travis works an arm with wrist locks. Assassin misses a stinger splash with comical overselling.
This Assassin, whoever he was a very amusing seller.
Yes.
He looked pathetic in glorious fashion.
After a near fall, Assassin cuts him off with a back elbow. He only can get a 1 count. Billy makes a quick comeback, hits a backbreaker, then a second rope Vader bomb for the pin. 1 minute, 51 seconds.
Yeah, I was not expecting a Vader bomb from smallish Billy Travis here.
A skinny, small guy.
It's like a young Tommy Rich would be the visual and the body type here. Assassin with the 3.00001 kick out, which always amuses me greatly. This was also, if we had forgotten what TV matches were like in Memphis, this is it. They're never longer than 4 minutes.
No.
They're often less than 2 minutes, and this was that.
Bill Dundee comes out to join Lance Russell. He's dressed in full Elvis Presley jumpsuit and sunglasses.
A red Elvis jumpsuit. And speaking of jumpsuits, we did not do the fashion corner we promised on Downtown Bruno in the earlier segment. He is wearing this like leather biker one-piece jumpsuit. He's got like a dyed black mohawk. He's wearing sunglasses. He's like, if you put a damp Paul Ellering in the dryer on the highest setting for like 3 hours, this is what would come out.
He challenges Downtown Bruno for a fight, cuts a good promo here, and he says, if you can beat me, I'll give you the sunglasses and the jumpsuit.
Yes, this is, again, one of the things with Bill Dundee. Whenever we see him, you have no idea whether he's going to be a heel or a babyface. And you get the sense that this was a weekly thing, almost, in terms of which side of the fence he was going to be on. Here he is a
full babyface. Yeah.
He's full babyface, but he admits, I've fought with Jarrett. We've fought against each other. I will fight with him as hard as we used to fight against each other now to take down the Sud Sable.
After commercial, we're told every Wednesday night they will be in the air-conditioned Sports Center in Owensburg, Kentucky.
Owensboro, Kentucky. It's Owensboro. The reason I know it's Owensboro is back in the day, many years ago, I have not been a fan for at least 15 years at this point, but I was a huge NASCAR fan growing up. A huge NASCAR fan growing up. And Darrell Waltrip, one of my favorite drivers, was from Owensboro. But this is, if you've spent any time in this area of the South, which I did a little bit in my younger years, never lived there, but had family in various areas of the South. The fact that in 1988 you had an air-conditioned sports center to hold a wrestling event, it is worth mentioning as many times as it gets mentioned here in these localized promos. You might think, well, why do they keep saying this air conditioning? It is very important in the summertime, and it was very rare that a building would have this. So yes, but they probably sold an extra 500 tickets based off of that alone.
Yeah, you had a 1 in 3 shot that the town ended in borough, ville, or burg. Those were your,
that's. I was actually thinking that earlier when you ran down the areas, the towns that CWA Memphis ran.
Fuller's back. He says he spent his money well, as Jimmy Golden will be teaming with the Mongolian Stomper. The Mongolian Stomper's coming to town.
The most important part of this for this localized Owensboro promo is that Robert Fuller, once again, is not only in a wheelchair, he promises that he will be in Owensboro with his Tennessee Ugly Stick.
The Tennessee Ugly Stick. Gorgeous Gary Young with Downtown Bruno is in the ring to take on the man with a very unfortunate name, Ken Raper,
who we've seen several times before as enhancement talent. It may have been actually on the Memphis shows. I feel like maybe Continental. Gary Young, it's another guy who I associate with just a few years later. You think of Gary Young, you think of Eric Embry, you think of Billy Joe Travis as this, 1990, 1991 USWA on ESPN. Here, he has a pretty ridiculous 70s curly permed mullet. And it immediately made me think, or sort of jogged my memory in terms of what I thought of him when I saw him as like a 10-year-old on ESPN. I'm like, wow, this guy is a really bargain basement Jimmy Jam Garvin.
That is a good comp, yeah. And I'm sure Ken Raper had totally fine junior high years, was not bullied at all. I'm sure. Quick squash. Young wins with a top rope splash under a minute.
A really good top rope splash, and also he had a great standing drop kick, which I did not expect at all. And yeah, he had Downtown Bruno with him throughout this match. So yeah, we go from this to more Robert Fuller post-match, and this is where, as much as we love Robert Fuller, as much as we love almost everything we've seen Robert Fuller in, watching this through modern eyes, this next segment is
any eyes.
Yes. Well, yes.
Eyes.
That was going to be my point, watching them through modern eyes, and then also thinking out the fact that this was in 1988. This wasn't in 1983. This wasn't in 1978. This wasn't in 1968. Yes, this was in Memphis, but still, this was in 1988.
The previous week, Robert Fuller and the Stud Stable had given Stud Stable member Brickhouse Brown a watermelon that started Brickhouse Brown on it started him on a breakup with this group that he's with. He didn't appreciate that at all. And Fuller's back, and this time he's got gifts for everyone. And he gives Gary Young a fancy new cape.
He gives Gary Young what looked quite a bit like Prince Nana's embassy robe. I feel like the lore goes further back than just Jimmy Rave and the embassy of ROH fame.
It says "Gorgeous One" on the back of this, and then he gives your champion. didn't look like a champion standing there. Phil Hickerson. He gives him he gives him just like a check. Like, here's your paycheck.
Yeah, he gives him some extra money. He gives him a bonus. He then gives Sylvia, their valet, some gold jewelry. He gives Downtown Bruno a real Rolex watch, which looks ridiculous on this skinny, bikered up looking guy.
And he gives Brickhouse a box, a gift wrapped up. Brickhouse opens the box. He's pissed again. So come after the watermelon, he's now got some sort of, so it looks like potentially a flask here. We're told that he'll have plenty of Crown Royal for this. He's had it. He's sick and tired of being treated like this, and he quits the Stud Stable.
He says, "You keep degrading me," and then he pronounces ridiculing in the best way I've ever heard. He says, "You keep ridiculing me," which is just tremendous. I love it. He's irate. Fuller is more irate and tells him to come back, says he will take Brickhouse for every dime he has. Brickhouse shoves Fuller, and up until this point, it almost looks as though Gary Young is on the side of Brickhouse, like he's not really getting involved. And then once Brickhouse shoves Fuller, Gary Young takes a shot at him from behind. Brickhouse tries to fight back, and then Fuller hits him with the Tennessee Ugly Stick from behind.
Yeah, Brickhouse, he was beating up all of them until Fuller hit him with the stick from behind. And then my notes say, "Oh no, I knew exactly where this was going, and I didn't like it." And they held Brickhouse and they whipped him with a belt. This whole angle it was not well received in '88. It's even worse in today's eyes in general. This would have never been acceptable by anyone at any time, and it's just yikes. 80s Memphis wrestling, and it's had wrestling in general has had a long history of problematic racist angles that went way into the 2000s. WCW was sued and lost.
You want to go further than that? Triple H, Booker T,
100%.
WrestleMania.
Yeah.
But yeah, this, I feel like even Bill Watts would have said, like, "Hey, this is a little heavy-handed." Like, Bill Watts of all people probably would not have gone this far.
No. So let's talk a little bit about Brickhouse Brown and his career. Dave Meltzer, the Wrestling Observer newsletter, tells us about Frederick Seawright, a.k.a. Brickhouse Brown, who passed away in 2018. He recounted a crazy story where Brickhouse Brown was first confirmed dead by a nurse July 20th, when his pulse flatlined. A sheet was put over his head, and they were waiting for the coroner to take the body. His mother was there with him at the time, didn't leave the room. She fell asleep after the stress and craziness of this ordeal. Sometime later, while she's sleeping, she hears her son's voice saying, "Mom, I'm hungry." She was halfway sleeping and believed she was dreaming when she heard it again. Then she heard him louder screaming her name. She woke up, the sheet no longer over his head. He's talking to her. She screams. He ends up living 9 more days after dying.
Jeez.
9 more days. He eventually passed away. He had terminal stage 4 cancer, but unbelievable. He died, came back to life, lived 9 more days, and then died. Brickhouse started wrestling in San Antonio for Joe Blanchard's Southwest Championship Wrestling in 1982. He lied and told promoters that he had been trained, and since he had a great physique, they put him in the ring to do enhancement work for Bobby Jaggers. But turns out he was utterly clueless. He was not trained. Terry Funk liked how he talked his way into the business, and he promised to help train him and get him bookings, which he did. Brown went territory to territory. His first real push came in 1985, working for Southeastern Championship Wrestling, where he formed a tag team called the Soul Patrol, who we've seen before with Norval Austin, and they briefly held the tag team titles. He became a genuine territory star in Tennessee in 1987 when he went heel. His size also wasn't as much of a detriment working in the Memphis territory because there was a lot of smaller wrestlers in this territory. So he drew very well on top in a feud with Jerry Lawler. It should have opened more doors for him, but it really didn't. He was a natural heel, but in those days there wasn't much of a place for a junior heavyweight sized top heel, even one that had a good physique like Brown did.
Hey, I would have liked to see him instead of, say, a Denny Brown in the NWA junior heavyweight title scene.
He ended up being mainly a smaller promotion wrestler, which was a tough spot in this era because smaller promotions were going by the wayside, as we described at the top of the show. He held the Southern title in Tennessee briefly in 1987 and the CWA title in 1988, the Texas title in 89, and the USWA tag team titles 3 times with the Gambler, Sweet Daddy Falcone, and Reggie B. Fine in the 90s.
Wow, the Gambler and Sweet Daddy Falcone. The Gambler, obviously, maybe the best example of a jobber plus in WCW. Sweet Daddy Falcone is another guy from I remember from watching USWA just a few years later.
We go back to the ring. The 6-man tag team action. The team of Rough and Ready teaming with the Blue Knight. 3 guys under masks. To take on the team of Sean Baxter, Ray Odyssey, and their tag team partner, Scott Steiner.
This is like, again, was it that Continental episode that we watched that had early Scott Steiner? I can't remember which promotion it was, but it was the same thing as here, where he's just in black trunks, nothing
his
flashy.
Young Lion look. Yeah.
Yes, pretty much, exactly. What a trio of men this is. Scott Steiner is very young, but looks exactly like Scott Steiner, jacked to the gills. Sean Baxter it's like if you crossed Ricky Morton with Ricky Rackman. He's skinnier than Ricky Morton, and he has Ricky Morton hair, but the Ricky Morton hair is 3 times bigger than actual Ricky Morton hair. It is a terrible look.
He could walk on stage in 1988 at any hair metal. He could go into any club on the Sunset Strip and walk right on stage with a hair metal band and fit right in. They'd be like, this guy's got, I like his look.
Something
huge
else.
Hair.
And then Ray Odyssey, talk about a guy who had just a career on the periphery, but was around for a long time. Surfer Ray Odyssey. Yeah. I remember hearing about him in the early Eastern Championship Wrestling days of ECW. He had stints in Mid-South, AWA, IWCCW, ECW, the NWA. He even had a brief run as on TV in the WWF and defeated Taz in a dark match in 1991 in the WWF. He wrestled as late as 2021 in the ISPW heavyweight title Rumble match. That was 14 years between matches. His last match prior to that was 1997. But yeah, and just a really, really interesting career for a guy who wasn't a very interesting wrestler. Just sort of, he came along right at the end of the territory era. This was his rookie year in the CWA in 1988. He actually 2 days after this show aired, wrestled a Cactus Jack at the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis.
Wow. Brickhouse comes out to join, not really commentary. He comes out to cut a promo. He's angry.
Just a rant, yeah.
He's ranting. He's angry. He's very mad about what happened in the previous segment, as he should be. Steiner with the Blue Knight over his shoulder, rams him into the corner, hits a running power slam, and gets the pin. This was a really quick squash.
Yeah, Scott Steiner hits the Oklahoma Stampede. Dr. Death Steve Billings' Oklahoma Stampede to get the win. My only notes on Ray Odyssey as a wrestler in this match is that he started his career as a bootleg surfer version of Tim Horner.
Brickhouse is with Lance, like we mentioned. He calls out Gary Young. And Lance points out to Brickhouse, well, when you hang around with guys like that, what were you expecting? And he's not wrong. He calls out Gary Young first. He says he's going to run through the entire stud stable. Robert Fuller, you want some? Bring it. Brickhouse says, make the match, or I'm going to take it out back to the alley. And so this brings out Randy Hales. He's like, we can't have fighting all around the place. Randy Hales comes out. He says, you want it, you got it. We will sign the match for next week.
Randy Hales is approximately 11 feet tall and 9 years old. Visually, it is such a strange look. I thought this Brickhouse Brown promo was great. He's upset. He's intense for a guy that you don't necessarily like. He's not like in the pantheon of all-time great promos. He was awesome here. I loved how he was not just acting like he's all of a sudden this perfect Ricky Steamboat white meat babyface. He's like, yeah, I'm a bad dude. I've done bad things. I know that, but these guys are worse. I'm going to take them out. I love also how Brickhouse Brown is telling Lance Russell, do something quick. And Lance is like, I don't make the matches here. There's nothing I can do for you. And then he sees Randy Hales in the corner. Lance says, he says, Randy, come over, see if you can do anything. Just such a great, like, logical way of having a match made on the spot instead of what we see in modern wrestling where it's just like there's a disagreement and then boom, a nanosecond later, a perfect video graphic pops up in the lower third saying, oh, this match will be on next week's show.
We go to the Mid-South Coliseum again where we see Lawler versus Kurt Hennig. I recapped this at the top where Lawler got the pin and won the AWA title. And this leads into a music video where we hear Bob Seger's Turn the Page, and we see Jerry Lawler jet-setting around defending this AWA title. We see him in Vegas at the Showboat for the AWA, which we remember from plenty of old AWA shows we've reviewed here on the podcast as well. After commercial, we come back to the ring, where we get the CWA heavyweight champion is here. It's Phil Hickerson, who we described earlier in the stud stable.
We mentioned him. I would not say that we described him.
Correct.
Phil Hickerson at this point in 1988 is he's round.
Gross.
He's I'm trying to think who's the guy. The best modern comp physically that I could give is JD Drake. He's just this like.
No, apologize to JD Drake immediately.
No, you haven't seen. This is JD, and I enjoy JD Drake as a wrestler, but I think JD Drake would take this as a compliment. Phil Hickerson has an awful look. Awful. When the bell rang, I really enjoyed him in this match. He teamed in this year, this very year of 1988, just 3 months after this, in the All Japan Tag League with Crusher Jerry Blackwell.
Crazy.
And then another thing is that I did not realize. I vividly remember Tojo Yamamoto in USWA, Tojo Yamamoto having a guy with him. I had no idea that Phil Hickerson was P.Y. Chuhai.
I did not know that either.
Completely ridiculous. I had no idea. Phil Hickerson. Let's see here. I want to see how late, because I'm always surprised by how late some of these guys end up having matches. Phil Hickerson cage match. We're going to do it bonus feed style and do some live on-air research here. Phil Hickerson, who I believe is still with us. Oh, his last match was 1995 in the USWA, teaming with Frank Morrell, referee Frank Morrell, and Phil Hickerson, losing to Robert Gibson and Tracy Smothers.
Here, Phil Hickerson is taking on Tommy King.
I apologize, Jeremy. I have to jump in because I'm seeing something here that just my brain cannot compute what this match would have looked like in any era, much less in the year 1995 AD. Joe LeDuc and Phil Hickerson wrestling for 11 Earth minutes. Jerry Lawler and Jimmy Valiant.
What?
That, I'll tell you what, that's the real Slamboree 1995 right there.
Legends, here we come. Oh, baby, that is something. I didn't think it was going to get any worse, and then you threw Jimmy Valiant in there, and that just derailed the whole thing.
And I assume the winner of that match went on to defeat the Road Warriors. Call back to 1983 Georgia for longtime listeners.
Whew. Downtown Bruno is on commentary during this match. We get a power slam, then Hickerson grabs a bear hug and turns it into a spine buster, which was less cool than it sounds.
I thought Phil Hickerson looked good here. He did this awesome Baba-style clothesline, hit a left arm DDT. Like, I didn't think he looked great, but like, my expectation for Phil Hickerson as an in-ring wrestler in 1988, when we saw the human form of him presented before us here on television, was like basement level, and he exceeded that by a significant margin.
Hickerson's just toying with King here. He's putting a knee on the chest, but he's unwilling to pin the guy. He hits a hooking clothesline, the DDT, and then puts a boot on the chest to officially get the pin. Jeff Jarrett and Bill Dundee versus Jimmy Golden and the Mongolian Stomper we're told, will be the match. And we get a young Jeff Jarrett cutting a promo with Bill Dundee. Jeff Jarrett, 20 years old here, cutting this promo.
Crazy, which is even crazier because think about that video package we saw, I believe, from like a show in 1986 where they showed it was Jarrett was coming to whatever territory it was. It may have actually been Memphis.
AWA, I think. Was it?
Well, we saw the clip of him wrestling Nick Bockwinkel.
Yep.
For the AWA world title in like 1986. So he would have been like
18.
He was 87, but either way, 18, 19 years old. That is crazy.
They remind us again that it's air conditioned. And then we're told that Brickhouse Brown and Gary Young is officially booked for that show as well. What'd you think of this promo?
It was fine. I don't know. I mean, it's so strange because Jeff Jarrett sounds exactly like good promo Jeff Jarrett. Like his voice, like he doesn't sound like a little kid. His voice sounds exactly like good promo Jeff Jarrett from later years, but he has nothing to say. Like it's not quite Kendall Windham, but he has nothing delivery to say.
Yeah. And we go to the ring for our main event TV time remaining here for your favorite. The Rock and Roll RPMs are here.
The Rock and Roll RPMs are such a weird team for me in that, like, I have such vivid memories of Mike Davis of the Rock and Roll RPMs, and yet whenever we see them, I feel like I've never seen Tommy Lane before, even though I clearly saw him because I saw the Rock and Roll RPMs like every week on ESPN as a kid, but just nothing he did stuck out to me. But I always remember Mike Davis.
Mike Davis and Tommy Lane. They are taking on the aforementioned Jeff Jarrett and superstar Bill Dundee. We get double hip toss by Dundee and Jarrett. A monkey flip out of the corner is blocked, and Jarrett hits the mat hard. Davis misses an elbow drop, and Dundee tags in. This is all Jarrett and Dundee at this point. Dundee comes off the top, misses a fist drop, and the RPMs go to work on Dundee in their own corner.
I love how everyone in Memphis did a second rope fist drop. Jerry Lawler, it was along with the pile driver, his finish. Bill Dundee used it as one of his finishes. Jeff Jarrett used it as a finish. I believe Erich even would later go on in USWA to use it as a finish as well.
I think you're right. Yeah, they miss a double clothesline, and Dundee clotheslines both men. It breaks down with all four men in the ring. Two of them bail to the outside as Downtown Bruno on the outside hits Dundee with a chair, and the bell rings. Dundee chases Bruno, who runs away, and Dundee and Jarrett are your winners via disqualification.
Great heat in this match. The girls in the crowd are screaming at the end of this match. They're terrified, particularly that Bill Dundee is getting hurt. He is the heartthrob for these young women here. Obviously, Jeff Jarrett as well. My takeaway from the in-ring action in this was how crazy it is that Jeff Jarrett at 20 years old had already perfected those great Jeff Jarrett punches.
He did, yes.
He didn't have the promos, but my God, the punches are exactly the same as you would see if you watched him wrestle today.
We close the show with another music video. This time it's set to White Snake's Here I Go Again, as we get a video package featuring Kerry Von Erich. Kerry is entering Texas Stadium. He's riding a horse in slow motion. He's jogging.
He's losing and then winning back the title from Al Perez, the ultimate symbol of a foul territory. Al Perez as your world champion.
When the song kicks in, we get Kerry in world-class highlights, and we get the clip of him pinning Ric Flair for the NWA title, and then a bunch of the other clips you just described.
We also had, leading into this, Lance Russell and Dave Brown, like they're at the desk. Like the show, as far as what's happening in the arena portion of the studio, is clearly over. There's no one yelling. There's no fans yelling or anything. But Lance Russell and Dave Brown are really playing up how great Kerry Von Erich is. And he's a world-class athlete, whether you root for him or not. I also liked how right when they came back from the break, when we had all the chaos, Lance Russell says how, quote, "We were playing around with murder and explosion there moments ago." But yeah, this video package was very effective as we were heading into, this is basically the CWA Memphis side of the build to Jerry Lawler versus Kerry Von Erich, which was interesting to see because we saw the world-class build to that same match, including the contract signing with, I believe, Bill Apter there.
Yes.
And then we saw the actual show itself, the Superclass show, like you said, and we reviewed that in the bonus feed. And then the show ends. I love how this ends, where it's Lance Russell, it's Dave Brown. They're at the desk, and Dave Brown does a very sober review of each match, gives the match times, says what happened, and then they tell us they'll see us next week, and they go off the air.
Tremendous. The format of the show is always fantastic. I wish I wish some of the in-ring action was longer.
Yes.
This is what you get with Memphis. But favorite thing on the show for you?
Oh man, seeing those Jeff Jarrett punches, I greatly enjoy that. It's always cool to get surprise 1988 Scott Steiner appearances. I really would have wanted to say seeing Robert Fuller do Robert Fuller things, but man, that one, that angle that we talked about definitely kind of took me out of that. I would say the highlight of this show, though, was everyone's performance in the Brickhouse Brown promo after he got beat down. His promo was great. Lance Russell was great and believable, and bringing in Randy Hales, like that was a textbook way of how you do that post beat down, post turn thing. If you're going to do a promo on the very same show and you need to quickly set something up, like they absolutely knocked that out of the park. And then, like you said, just the format of the show. To me, if you combine it, like I enjoy the format of Mid-South, some of the best wrestling TV on. I'm also partial to it because it's what I grew up on. But to me, if you had the in-ring of what you got on Mid-South week in and week out, with just the pacing and like the kinetic energy of a Memphis show, and having Lance Russell and Dave Brown there, you'd have the perfect weekly wrestling show.
Yeah, and the worst thing on the show is always racism in wrestling. Never,
Yes.
never good. We hate it every time we see it, and it's awful every time we have to review it. But like you mentioned, the best thing was definitely the Brickhouse promo and all the things around that. So Memphis,
sure, and I think just going back to that angle briefly, I think on top of all the reasons why it's terrible because it's terrible, it's also lazy because there's a million different ways that you could have done that exact same thing that would have been just as effective. It would have been so much less tropey on top of just being something you don't want to see.
No. Honorable mention for best thing on the show to fun music video packages in 1988. Yes. Like, I mean, come on, Whitesnake and Bob Seger. We had two winning video packages there.
Two winning genres of 80s music being represented here on a very good television show.
Yeah, and I think this was just a randomly chosen TV show, as the randomizer does. And every single week we load up the randomizer. It can choose any time period, any show, anything. So it picked this show for us. It's picked better shows in the past, I think, and our intentionalizers over that pick shows for us to watch over at our Patreon have also found some really great episodes of Memphis television as well. So there's plenty of other better episodes than this, but if you haven't seen the Memphis territory, go out of your way to see it. It is definitely worth watching, especially in its heyday. When you go back to like kind of the heyday
82,
of
83.
Yeah.
We talked about when we reviewed those shows, the early to mid 80s over primarily on the bonus feed, how while the presentation could not be more territory era, could not be more 70s, 80s in terms of the visual presentation of it's in a studio, it's that setup, like the pace and again, like the energy of the show is the closest thing to what you would see in like the Monday Night Wars era from a territory. Well, on the surface, it looks like other territories. When you watch the show, it has a very different feel.
And with that, we are going to wrap it up. If you want to interact with the show, you can do it through comments via YouTube, which is always fun, or via all the social media platforms. You can follow us at Wrestle at Random on all the social media platforms. We'd love to hear from all of our listeners, and we always reply back to everything. So make sure you're following us there, and make sure you stay subscribed to the podcast. Tell your wrestling fan friends about the show. Wrestling fans know other wrestling fans, so make sure you tell them about the show, show them how to subscribe. And with that, we're going to wrap it up and call it a podcast. Adam, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Intentionalizer. Well, we covered the things that were less, I guess, that were objectionable, things we would not have liked to see. There's still a lot of fun stuff on the show. It's always cool to go back to Memphis, and Lord knows where the randomizer will take us next week.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.